brings to mind an interesting point, which refers back to how I think Anglo-American poetry these days tends to shy away from the political. But this, I believe, has had a great impact in compromising the public role of the poet. Poets often complain that people don't read poetry, but they kind of stop there. They don't ask the questions as to why that might be. An interesting example is that when 9/11 happened, people would call into radio stations and ask for poems to be read out in this time of tragedy. And by quite a margin, the most popular poem requested was W.H. Auden's September 1st, 1939, and that was the poem about the beginning of the Second World War. And it's quite strange to think how 62 years later, people would still go back to that poem rather than look at anything new and fresh that had come out. And I think this should really prompt a lot of writers to think as to why that would be. But this is why a poem like Far From Baghdad, which I'm going to read in a moment, is especially important in these times, and I think it addresses one of the great catastrophes of our times, the Iraq War. I realize that obviously you jump into the deep end by starting a reading of these heavily political poems, but Doris Lessing had an interesting point to make in one of her lectures. She said that to remember history is not for the sake of keeping alive the memories of old tyrannies, but to recognize present tyranny, for those patterns are in us still. Far From Baghdad. Crash of boots. Ishmael is back in the place of the ram. God has changed his mind, and Abraham's tears are in vain. The butchers are here. We are lost, shocked like dromedaries in the desert of Iraq, who watch a passing caravan of armored cars. That water is bought and sold is understood. It's only now it serves to launder consciences. After grave robbers come museum looters. Behold progress. The statue was beheaded. It was only a lump of bronze or steel, but in the heads of man, nothing has changed. The tyrant is dead. Long live the tyrant. Freedom's torn apart. Have we repeated everything like parrots? The same old refrain is over. Know this, freedom imposes itself. If I don't kill you, I'm doing you a favor, an old Moroccan saying goes. Some pearls of wisdom send shivers down my spine. We only lend to the rich, the French saying goes. In local Arabic, it comes out as fatten the ass of a sheep that's already fat. Happy now, translator? We only talk about banning weapons of mass destruction. And weapons of partial destruction, what about those? Given the amount of human blood spilled every day, I'm astonished that none of these multinationals hasn't yet turned into a new source of energy. Mass graves unearthed, filmed from every angle. Strange booty near a charred vehicle. Corpses are trampled, with smiles on their lips. Even in hatred, there's something grotesque. Are some assassins more noble than others? So many poets stopped here, before other ruins, after other ravages. But they, at least, had only one idea in their heads, to improvise new love songs. For every woman who adopts or readopts the veil, that's 10 years of progress gone up in smoke. Basra, 30 years ago. The most potent Iraq flowed freely. The poets gathered to laugh up to the stars, awash with their visions, that traitor Iraq. Somewhere around here, wisdom had its house. Aristotle was saved from oblivion. Scheherazade conceived, the mother of all stories. The spirit breathed until it ran out of breath. before succumbing to suffocating pollution from the mother of all wars. A people can only outwit their oppressor if they're morally superior. A cradle of humanity. Shall we say, it's hardly surprising here or elsewhere that predators are recruited from this very cradle. But you could say that the oppressed are eager to usurp the oppressor, to punish in turn those who came first, or else themselves. Despite his wisdom, the great Ibn Khaldun failed to grasp this fundamental twist of universal history. When the moral is uncorked, we must drink down to the dregs, see the unspeakable, and die. In the belly of the night, a cry rises, but where? The seven heavens, sucked into a black hole, have joined the queue of the helpless.
I think it's different the English text now. Is it necessary that I read the text in French? For me, it's different. Okay. Because it's longer.
All right.